Hello crafty people, it's Sharon here and I've got a new video to share with you today using the lovely Tracey Hey Proud Peacock stamps. And today I'm going to do a bit more watercolouring. I'm going to use some Crafters Companion Aqua Pens this time, just so that you can see a different type of pen in action. So this is the Tracey Hey set, and as you can see it's got a beautiful kind of mandala in a peacock style, some lovely sentiments: have a fabulous day, be fabulous and fierce, so very proud, and two beautiful peacocks front facing and side on, and this is a really lovely set. I'm just going to make a card that says have a fabulous day, so it could be a birthday or just general, but I think this would work really well for a contemporary wedding card or anniversaries, that kind of thing. So that's my stamp set that I'm using today. I've also got one of the stamp pads, and these are literally will fit flush on a 6x6 greeting card. This one is designed to go with the peacocks, but of course it will go with anything. There's two, there's peacock and more peacock. So I've gone with the more peacock today. The peacock is deeper shades and this is more pastel shades. But what you will see inside is lots of beautiful papers. I mean, look at that, that's amazing. You could just put that in a frame and frame it like that on your wall. As I've mentioned before, I find it really hard to use these because I just want to keep them and look at them all the time. But I'm just giving you a quick flick so you can see. And I've chosen not this one, but one very similar to this, which you'll see a bit later. So I'm going to be watercolouring. That means I need to stamp my image with a waterproof ink, and I decided to use VersaFine Clair. I've pre-stamped that onto watercolour card. The card I used is the Crafters Companion bulk standard watercolour card, not the expensive one, just the regular one that comes in the clear pack, and that works perfectly well for these kind of images. Okay, let's get started. So to colour my image, I don't actually need that many pens. I've just picked out 5 here, which you can see. So we've got Kingfisher, Peacock Blue, Meadow, Sea Green, and the tiniest bit of sunflower, which I'm going to use for the beak. So the key with these pens is, although they're pens, you don't actually want to colour direct onto the paper because it will grab and you won't get a good blend. So what we need to do is have something non-porous to colour on, and we're going to colour some of the ink on there, which uses hardly any, and then we're going to pick it up with a paintbrush. The main colour that I'm going to use for my bird is going to be the Kingfisher Blue. So I'm going to just scribble some of that onto my mat. There we go. It looks like loads, but there's hardly any, and these pens are so juicy, they'll last you forever as long as you keep the lids on. Now I'm using a paintbrush, not a watercolour brush, because I want to keep a control of the amount of water that I'm using. This is a Royal & Langnickel and it's size 5. You can use a 6, a 4, whatever you want, as long as it's a round brush with a nice point on the end, so you can get into the detail. So I've already dipped my paintbrush into the water and got some water on there, and then I just dabbed it on a cloth just to take off the excess. And now I'm just going to pick up some of that paint, and the first thing I'm going to do is just put a wash on my bird's face. So I'm starting around the edge and I'm going to work my way around, and don't be afraid to turn your paper around. I've just dipped in some more water there because the idea is I want it to get paler as I go to the middle, and it will absorb water, so you will need to keep dipping into your water and then just dabbing on a kitchen towel or something like that, just to make sure that you have enough. And then you can see there my brush was getting a bit dry, so I suddenly got a chunk of blue. So I'm just going to dab into my water again, pick up a little bit of that watered down blue. Every time I dip into my blue ink, it's watering down a little bit. And now I've got a kind of a base coat for my bird. And usually you keep, when you're dealing with faces, whether it's animals or anything else, people, especially if you're sort of doing cutesy kind of things, it's a good idea to keep the pale bit to the centre of the face where the eyes are, and that enhances the face and makes them look sort of, I don't know, more soft and friendly somehow. So I'm fiddling here when I shouldn't really be. I should just leave it for now. But I'm just starting to blend and soften into that centre area, which is almost white. It's just the faintest hint of blue, which you may not even be able to see on here. I'm going to go onto the body now, so quick dip into the water, pick up a bit more paint, hardly need any, and again I'm starting from the areas where I think it will be darkest, so around the edge, and just blending away until I get to the middle. And as you can see, when you get a little bit of a line, you can easily just go back and reblend. There we go. Now on these little double line bits, I'm just going to add a little bit of colour, but I am going to go back in with my blue in a bit just to add some depth. Okay, let's have a look at these lovely feathers now. I want to do those sort of multicolour like a peacock, so I'm going to start with some blue, move into some green, and end up with a dark blue on the outside. So I'm picking up again, might have a bit much here, it's a bit thick, so I'm dipping into the water, and again a base coat, but I'm just leaving an area just there because I want to highlight that with my green. I want them to be multicoloured. Now I've not got quite enough paint, so I'm just going in there like that, and this one, and I'm doing that all the way around. Now I'm not worried about a harsh line at the moment because when I add my green in, I'm going to blend them together, and I'm probably going to add a bit more paint as well. So there we go. Now I'm going to carry on working on the feathers because I don't mind if that blends together. I wanted to let these two dry a bit before I carried on working, but you can do it all in one go if you want to, it's fine. So I've now picked my meadow, which is a very, I don't know, limey bright green, and I'm picking up some of that and I'm going in with that too. And you can see that where it touches the blue, it blends into a different shade of green. And for me, I just like going in round circular motions. Some people paint straight, I'm more of a scribbler. Now you can see there that I've kind of lost quite a lot of my blue on these paler leaves, so I'm going to just give my brush a clean in the water, and I'm going to go back with the blue, a bit stronger this time. And then maybe just a bit of green back there just to blend away and soften. So you can play around with it and go backwards and forwards as much as you like, really. Should have put a bit more blue in there. And what you'll find is that as it settles, it will move and blend a little bit more. So it's worth leaving it, which is the thing I find the hardest, is just to leave it alone and see what it does. But we'll leave that there for a moment, and now we'll come back to the face area. I'm going to darken that a bit more now, add some shadow. So I've gone back to my original blue, and because it's dried a little bit, I can really get some darkness in there. And I know it looks harsh at the moment, but it will come good. So I've just gone almost all around the edge, made it thicker on the right hand side because that's where I feel like the most shadow is. Then I'm going to pick some watered down blue, watered it a little bit more, and I'm going back around it again, and I'm blending towards the middle. Now that looks quite harsh there, and there's two ways to deal with that. You can either just add plain water, or you can go back to your blue and just make a slightly more watered down version and apply that. But what we kind of need to do now, I've just added water to mine, is leave that to settle once again and see how it goes. So I'll go back down to my body now and doing much the same thing. So if I did a bit more, that was a bit too watery to be fair. So you can see that when it's wet, it gives a more softer finish. And once again, we'll leave that alone for a moment, let that dry and see how it comes out. Meanwhile, let's go and have a look at these little boots now. So the boots I've done with 2 shades of green. So my base coat, sorry, I just cleaned my brush a bit first, is the Meadow, which is a very bright green. So I'm just giving my boots a good initial coat with that. And I'm going to leave those for a second to dry. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to go up to my little hearts here, which are these little feathers. I'm going to colour those in directly with my pens because they're so tiny they don't really need any shading. So I'm going to use the Meadow first. I'm going to use that in the middle and just give it a quick swipe like that. And then I'm going to pick my darker green, which is green sea, and I'm going to colour that one in and that one in. So they come out quite bold, which I think is quite nice. Let's what should we do now? Let's do the dark blue feathers on the outside for a moment. So you can see I'm moving around to give a chance for my paint or ink to dry a little bit before I go on to my next stage. So there's my blue, very strong blue colour. And I'm going to start off with my paintbrush, and I'm going to just pick a tiny bit and water it down quite a bit right on the edge there. Sorry, I'll bring that more into shot. There we go. So I've just picked a tiny little bit from the edge and added some water. And now I'm going to just add my base coat onto these. In fact, I maybe need a little bit more. So you can adjust it, test it on a scrap of the same kind of paper. You could test it on the edges here if you want, because we're going to cut this out ultimately. There we go. So I've got a nice base coat, and I'm also going to just go in and use this for a little bit of shading on some of these other feathers at the same time. So I'm just picking up the tiniest amount and with the point of my brush and just dabbing it in where I think the shadows would be, because these feathers are multi-layered, aren't they? They're one on top of the other. Now I'm going back to my original blue feathers and I'm putting in a nice strong bit of shade. And these are, you know, these are just tiny little pieces, so you don't need to spend hours and hours trying to shade them all individually. You could do them all the same colour if you wanted to. It's just a matter of preference, really. There we go. And I'm going to go back, bring a bit more blue in. I'm just fiddling and adding and seeing how it looks. And I'm going, sorry you can't see again because I'm having to keep moving this around. I'm going back to my original blue, and I'm just going to add a bit more of that as well because I feel like I've wiped that out a bit now. And then what you'll get is these lovely sort of multicoloured variegated feathers. Back to my green, and I'm just blending again. Okay, so now our feathers look like they've got quite a lot of depth to them. And now I've got time to go back to my body. I'm just going to apply a bit more of that blue because it's running a bit thin. There we are. Sorry, that's Kingfisher blue. And I'm going to go back in. I think I'll start with the body first. So I'm going in quite dark, and we can go in a little bit with the darkest blue as well if we want to, just to give even more depth. So now that that's dried a bit, I was able to apply a darker layer, and I'm going to do the same here. I want to really make him dark on this side where his head's tipping down, and then I've just dipped in my water and just blending out once again, and a little bit under his chin. If birds have a chin, I don't know, under his beak. And all the time I'm just blending back out. And now I'm going to just get with my darkest blue and just give him a little bit more shade on the bottom. Might have gone a step too far there, but what will happen is it will just blend. And right into here, and then I've dampened my brush again, and I'm just dabbing, and what happens is that will diffuse it a little bit. And then blend with water once again. So time to listen to my own good advice and let it be for a minute. Okay, so really all we've got left now is the boots and his beak and his eyes. So I have gone over his eyes a little bit by in my blending, but that won't matter too much, and I'll show you why in a moment. Now I want to add some colour to his boots, and I'm going to use the darker green, which is called sea green. This is quite a vibrant green as well, so I'm just going to put that there and refresh my meadow green just in case I need it. And dip in my water and dabbing on a cloth. I'm going to go around the edge. Need a bit more paint there. And I'm going to leave a round bit in here like this. Let's go again. Actually, this one's not coming out. Some colours will come out more vibrant than others. I'm surprised this one's not stronger, but it doesn't matter because you can just leave it to dry and reapply. So what I've done is I've gone over the whole of the boots and left a little highlight area where there's the shine on his boots. I'm going to leave that for a second, and I'm going to use my sunflower and apply directly onto his beak, just to colour his beak in. There we go. And for the eyes, I'm going to use my Meadow, and I'm going to go, the good thing about these pens is if you get the full length ones, they have a fine tip on the other side. So I'm going to go into there and add that like so. And the same with the Meadow, I'm going to use the fine tip and apply that on the bottom, so he's got sort of nice colourful eyes. And finally I'm going to go back with my green, and because that's dried a little bit, you can see it's not watering down so much, and that's giving me that extra little bit of depth that I was looking for. So that's our little guy coloured. I'm going to leave him to dry. You can dry him with a heat tool if you want to, but what I did, rather than have you watch me cutting out, which can be a bit boring, I've got one that I prepared earlier, and here he is. And as you can see, I've cut him out and cut the little hearts off completely, and I'll tell you why I'm going to do that, or why I have done that, in a moment when I bring the final card in for you. Okay, so using that Tracey Hey paper, it's time to zoom out a bit now. There we are. I picked one of the heart papers, but what I did, I actually stamped that beautiful peacock mandala directly onto the paper with my VersaFine Clair, and I used the exact same colours to watercolour all of the feathers. So those 2 blues and 2 greens are what I used. And again, you don't need to use loads of water, because you know you don't want to buckle the card too much, but it does take it very well. And the really nice thing about this is, because it's we've got the pattern over here and the print, when you actually paint over it, it takes the colour and just changes it a little bit, so it goes from this blue to a deeper blue and gives you a kind of shading all of its own, which is really lovely. I've also stamped one of the sentiments and a little heart embellishment just to give it a little bit of extra oomph. I didn't trim this down at all, so what I've actually done is mounted it onto a 7x7 card. I didn't really want to take away any of the, well, any of it really, so I decided to do that. And I've got a little round corner punch, so I just decided to round the edges for something a little different, and matted onto some plain blue card, which I hoped would sort of pick out the blue, darker blue that I've got. I know it's not the same, but it gives a sort of feel, a bit of depth to it. So my peacock is going to go here, and I'm probably going to raise him a bit so that he sticks out a little bit from the card, because otherwise he's going to sort of merge in there. But what I want to do, I didn't want to spend time trying to cut the tiny little lines around here, and ordinarily I wouldn't even have cut out the hearts, but because this is very patterned, if I stamp the hearts onto here, you'll see in a minute they kind of disappear, I think. So what I'm going to do is get my little bird image, and I'm going to stamp it onto here so that all those little pieces that I didn't cut out will still appear on this background. So I've got my stamping platform for this, but you can use anything that you like really. Actually, I'm going to turn it around this way. So I'm just going to put my card in, and secure with my magnets, and I've already got my bird here ready, my peacock. So I'm going to place it where I want him to be, which is kind of here, and I'm going to give him a quick stamp with my VersaFine Clair Nocturne. So now this doesn't have to be a perfect stamp, because remember, most of it will be covered over, so if it doesn't come out perfectly, it's not a problem. But we're just going to press it down like so. Mostly I just want to get these little stalks that go with the hearts and the hearts themselves, so that I know where to position them. Okay, so he's on there, but you can probably barely see him because there's a lot of busyness going on behind. But if I hold up like that, you can sort of see his boots. You can see those 3 hearts, which I think you could colour in, but I think might be obliterated by the pattern behind. But I'll tell you what, let's give it a go and see what it looks like. Yeah, you can see them, but I feel like they're maybe a little bit lost in there. And I'm actually starting to wonder if I should have done them blue, perhaps, so that they would look different to these green ones. But, you know, we live and learn, so that's fine for now. Right, so I'm just going to pause for a second while I just deal with the fiddly business of cutting out these tiny little hearts, and then I'll be back to finish off the card for you. Okay, so with a bit of trial and error, I have cut out some of these hearts, but they're so tiny that it's very hard to do them without a white border around the edge. And if I just zoom in really close, sorry, I don't know what happened there. When I put it down, there's a bit of a nasty white edge to them. So I could just get my green pen and just go around the edges like that to try and take away that edginess and see how that looks, which is a lot better. So you could do that. Another thing I'm going to try is I've got a Posca glitter pen, so I'm actually just going to colour over them and see if that looks any better. They don't quite stick out, do they? So that may need a little rethink, but I think you get the idea. And so my final thing that I'm going to do with this is to zoom out again, bring it back in shot, there we are. I'm going to put my little guy on the bottom here. I'm going to use some sticky pads, which I put somewhere. There we are. Just to raise him. So I've got one. They're all covered in bits of stuff. 2 and 3. And these will pretty much stick solid as soon as I place this on my card. So another little trick, so that you've got a bit of wiggle time, is just to put some wet glue over the top to give you a moment to move them around, because with this one we are going to put it in such a way that it covers over the lines that we stamped underneath. So here we go. These are particularly sticky, these. There. And there we have our finished card. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, the colouring, etc., and the final card. And I'd love it if you give me a like and subscribe if you like what you see. And hopefully I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.